We've all been there, those moments when something small sets us off, and before we know it, we're overwhelmed by a flood of emotions. Whether it's a passing comment, a stressful situation, or even a memory, triggers can disrupt our peace and take control of our reactions. But what if you could change that? What if, instead of being ruled by your triggers, you could understand them and manage them? In this video, we'll explore how to stop getting triggered and regain control over your emotions. Before we begin, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for regular updates. Let's get started. What are triggers? Triggers are powerful emotional responses to specific stimuli, words, actions, or situations that evoke memories, often from past traumatic or unpleasant experiences. These responses can occur suddenly and feel overwhelming, leading to emotions such as anger, fear, anxiety, or sadness. A trigger can be as subtle as a certain smell or as direct as a confrontation. And while one person may be deeply affected by a particular trigger, another might not be affected at all. Triggers are highly individualized, shaped by our unique experiences and emotional landscapes. For example, someone who has experienced a car accident might find themselves triggered by the sound of screeching tires, while another person might not react to the same sound. Triggers can be linked to a variety of past experiences, whether they involve loss, betrayal, rejection, or trauma. They act as emotional flashbacks, pulling us back into the emotional state we were in during the original experience. Why do we get triggered? The reason we get triggered is rooted in our brain's survival mechanisms, particularly in how our minds store and process memories, especially those tied to strong emotions. Our brain is designed to protect us from harm, and one of the ways it does this is by encoding memories of traumatic or stressful events in a way that they can be quickly recalled in the future. This is an evolutionary response that dates back to when our ancestors needed to remember dangerous situations, like encountering a nearby predator or consuming a poisonous plant, to recognize safety concerns and protect themselves in the future. When we encounter something that reminds us of a past event, whether it's a smell, a sound, a phrase, or a specific situation, our brain reacts defensively. This reaction is often automatic and occurs without us even realizing it. The brain's fear center, the amygdala, plays a key role in this process. It quickly scans our environment for potential threats, and when it detects something that resembles a past danger, it sends out a warning signal. The science behind emotional triggers. When a trigger sets off an emotional reaction, it's because the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for detecting threats, has perceived something that it associates with danger. This perception doesn't necessarily align with the reality of the situation. The amygdala's job is to respond quickly, which is why it often reacts based on past experiences rather than the present context. When triggered, the amygdala activates the hypothalamus, which in turn stimulates the pituitary gland to release hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones prepare the body to either fight or flee from the perceived threat. Physiologically, this can lead to a racing heart, sweaty palms, rapid breathing, and heightened alertness, symptoms that are often unnecessary and unhelpful in non-threatening situations. Identifying your triggers. The first and most crucial step in managing triggers is identifying them. It's important to recognize the specific situations, people, or events that consistently provoke a strong emotional response in you. These could be obvious, like a particular topic of conversation or a specific person, or they could be subtle, like certain sounds, smells, or times of the year. One effective way to identify your triggers is by keeping a trigger journal. In this journal, write down each time you feel a strong emotional reaction. Note the circumstances surrounding the reaction, what happened, who was involved, how you felt, and any physical sensations you experienced. Over time, you'll start to see patterns emerging. You might notice that certain themes, words, or situations are consistently present when you get triggered. Another way to identify triggers is through reflection. Think back to times when you felt overwhelmed by emotions. What was happening during those moments? What were you thinking about? By reflecting on past experiences, you can gain insights into what might trigger you in the future. It's also helpful to talk to people who know you well, as they might be able to point out patterns you haven't noticed. Awareness, the key to handling triggers. Once you've identified your triggers, the next step is to increase your awareness of them in real time. This means learning to catch yourself when you start to feel triggered. The sooner you recognize that you're being triggered, the easier it becomes to take a step back and choose how you want to respond rather than reacting impulsively. Awareness is about being present in the moment and paying attention to your emotional and physical responses. It's about noticing when your heart starts to race, when your palms get sweaty, or when you feel a knot in your stomach. These physical cues are often the first sign that you're being triggered. By tuning into these signals, you can catch yourself before your emotions spiral out of control. Mindfulness practices, such as meditation or deep breathing exercises, can help you develop greater awareness of your triggers. These practices teach you to observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment, allowing you to stay calm and centered even when faced with challenging situations. Over time, mindfulness can help you build a buffer between the trigger and your response, giving you more control over your emotions. Learning to pause, giving yourself space. When you feel a trigger coming on, one of the most effective things you can do is pause. This pause doesn't have to be long. Even a few seconds can make a significant difference. The goal is to create a gap between the trigger and your response, allowing you to shift out of the automatic fight or flight mode and into a more thoughtful and controlled state of mind. There are several techniques you can use to create this pause. One simple method is to take a deep breath and count to 10. This brief moment of focus on your breath helps calm your nervous system and gives you a chance to consider your next steps. Another technique is to repeat a calming phrase to yourself, such as, "I am in control" or "this will pass." These phrases can serve as reminders that you have the power to choose your response. If possible, physically remove yourself from the triggering situation. This could mean stepping outside, going to a different room, or even just turning away for a moment. Physical distance can provide emotional distance, making it easier to calm down and think clearly. Role of self-compassion in managing triggers. One of the most powerful tools in managing emotional triggers is self-compassion. When triggered, it's easy to fall into a cycle of self-criticism, blaming yourself for overreacting or not handling the situation better. However, practicing self-compassion can break this cycle and help you respond to triggers in a healthier way. Self-compassion involves treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer a friend in a similar situation. When you notice you're triggered, acknowledge your feelings without judgment. Remind yourself that it's okay to feel upset or overwhelmed, and that these emotions are a normal part of the human experience. To practice self-compassion, start by using gentle, supportive language when talking to yourself. Instead of saying, "I shouldn't be upset by this," try saying, "It's understandable that I'm upset, given my past experiences." Additionally, take a moment to comfort yourself physically, perhaps by placing a hand on your heart or taking slow, deep breaths. These small acts of kindness can soothe your nervous system and help you regain emotional balance more quickly. Building emotional resilience through regular reflection. Another effective strategy for managing triggers is to build emotional resilience through regular reflection. Emotional resilience is the ability to adapt to stressful situations and bounce back from adversity. By regularly reflecting on your experiences and emotional responses, you can strengthen this resilience and better prepare yourself for future triggers. Start by setting aside time each day or week to reflect on moments when you felt triggered. Ask yourself what emotions you experienced, what thoughts ran through your mind, and how you responded to the situation. Journaling can be a helpful tool for this reflection. Write down your thoughts and feelings about triggering events and consider how you might handle similar situations differently in the future. Over time, this practice can help you identify patterns in your emotional responses and develop strategies for managing them more effectively. Reframing the situation. Reframing is a cognitive technique that involves changing the way you perceive a situation. When you're triggered, your initial reaction might be to see the situation as threatening or negative. However, by reframing the situation, you can shift your perspective and reduce the emotional impact of the trigger. For example, if you're triggered by criticism, instead of viewing the criticism as a personal attack, you might reframe it as an opportunity to learn and grow. Ask yourself, what can I take from this feedback that will help me improve? By focusing on the positive aspects of the situation, you can reduce the intensity of your emotional response. Another way to reframe a situation is to remind yourself that the trigger is not about you. It's about the other person's perspective or circumstances. For instance, if someone cuts you off in traffic and you feel triggered, you might reframe the situation by considering that the other person might be in a hurry due to an emergency. This shift in perspective can help enlighten you to feel more empathy and less anger. Don't let your triggers take the lead. Use these strategies to stay calm and in control. If you found this video helpful, please give us a like. Your support helps us continue creating valuable and informative content. Be sure to follow and explore our other videos to unlock your mind and master your power.